Hello, hello, hello there. This is your girl, Valerie Mason Chase. And as you can see, what are you doing? What are you pointing to?
Push it back.
No, I don't want to push back. I had it where I wanted it. Listen, we got the Cookie Man with us this week, y'all.
Yeah, I'm back.
Cookie Man is back.
Feeling better today.
Thank God. And thank you guys for all your prayers. And please continue to pray that my husband will be compliant and follow instructions. So hopefully we won't go through that again. Hey, John O. Hey, Jackie. Thank you all for tuning in, for watching, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching later at another time. And as always, I want to encourage you to like and share and share and share. And if you haven't already subscribed, I encourage you to do so and to hit that notification bell so that when we have broadcast coming up in the future, you will get the notification. Hey, Liz, my daughter-in-law, my son, my sister. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Paul, listen to your nurse. Thank you, Liz. Okay. You would think he would know by now. You know, Liz, not only am I his wife, but I'm a nurse with 4 decades of history. But anyhow, that's beside the point. So anyway, this evening, we have a topic that I believe has touched the lives of most individuals, either directly or indirectly in some way. What do you think, Cookie Man?
I would agree. I definitely can attest to what our topic is today and how it has impacted me close or from afar.
Yeah, and I don't think that there are many families in America that haven't been touched by it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to be talking about drug use, drug abuse, and more importantly, recovery and the impact that all of it have on relationships. So I have 2 very, very special brummen to bring on tonight. What you doing, babe?
Trying to move this up. You keep talking.
Okay. 2 very special guests to bring on this evening. The first person I'm going to bring on is none other than Gary Williams. Gary Williams. So Gary is the Cookie Man's one of his very, very, very best friends. So Lovey, you can say whatever you want to about Gary, but he's going to introduce himself.
Yeah, I've known Gary, boy. You know, I'm trying to think. We probably met. We grew up on Sterling and Ocean in that area.
In Brooklyn,
New York. We've probably known each other, oh my goodness, since I was 12, 13 years old when we started hanging out on Sterling Place, doing all kind of crazy stuff. And he's been an integral part of my life ever since.
So welcome, Gary. And I just want to really thank you for being a part of this broadcast. You know, this is not something that's always easy to talk about, but I really thank you and I appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about the subject matter. So introduce yourself to our listening audience. Share whatever you'd like to about yourself.
Hi, my name's Gary, and I am grateful. First off, let me just say I'm grateful to be able to sit here on this platform. I want to thank God, as well as you, Valerie, for allowing me to be here, because my lifestyle and my life that I lived, I didn't have to be here, and I'm grateful, first off, to be here today, to be able to sit here and talk about myself, recovery, and the subject matter that you have at hand here. I just want to acknowledge God that I'm able to sit here and do this, because I didn't have to be this way, and I'm grateful that I'm able to be here. So I have to get that out of the way first off, to be grateful and thankful for my life today. I guess you can call me a somewhat normal human being. I grew up here in Brooklyn.
That's questionable.
We don't need no side comments. Let me just get through this. I was raised in Brooklyn from a large family of 11 of us, and I came to New York in my mother's arms. And we was raised in Brooklyn, throughout Brooklyn. I lived throughout Brooklyn. And I had somewhat of a normal childhood, I guess. I always felt that I didn't fit in because I had to wear my brother's hand-me-downs. My mother could not afford to give me the things I might have wanted or what I thought I needed.
Yeah.
So I always felt that I didn't fit in and that I didn't belong. And so because of that, I led a life that led me to different things. And I guess I'll get into that later on.
Mm-hmm.
Always feeling the need to want to fit in. But overall, I think I'm a good person. I enjoy life. I like to enjoy life. I enjoy cooking. I'm a chef. I love food. Uh, um, I love to cook. I love to enjoy life. I like to take vacations. I like to enjoy the world. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to begin to do that now because most of my life I haven't been able to do that because of some things that was holding me back.
Yeah.
We'll get into later on. But I'm grateful to be able to begin life once again. I've had a second chance at this life. And I'm grateful to be here today to able to be express that to the audience and acknowledge to myself that I have a second chance at this beautiful life of ours.
Yes, praise God. Praise God. Thank you so much, Gary. Now the next individual I want to bring on is Mr. Alvin Smith Sr. Now, don't leave off the senior now, okay? Because that means that there's a junior. So, Alvin Smith, Alvin, I'm going to bring him on. Alvin, thank you so much. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
So, I'm going to ask my viewers to welcome Alvin, give Alvin a shout out. And Alvin, I'm going to ask you to do the same as Gary, is just introduce yourself to the listeners, whatever you want to share about yourself.
All right. As Gary stated, I am so grateful because it was only by the grace of God that I'm still here. I'm a kid that was born and raised over in Philadelphia, North Side. But I finally went to the military, served 26 years, worked with corrections, finishing my stay with juvenile justice as addiction counselor, social worker. Person that loves God. He's first in my life. Have a family, been married 28 years, four children, 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
This is a passion of mine. It's near and dear to my heart. And it's something that I thought that I could change the world. If I could, I would. But that's not the reality. But we could change one life at a time.
Yeah.
So happy married. Just love. I'm an enthusiast. Love boating. Just came back from fishing. Caught all this fish. Love music. Try to play bass. As your music was playing, I was trying to string along with it. I mentor kids. I have 2 programs. One, Dare to Be a Dreamer. The other one, I work with the Pythagoreans from Prince Hall Masons. We, with children from 7 years old to 21. So these things are exciting. I just picked up gardening. I had some beautiful tomatoes and collard greens and peppers. Look, y'all laugh, but when you're out there in the streets in the world and stuff like that, these are things that you don't even try to do. But when you have a new revelation on life, you get a chance to appreciate these things.
Yeah.
So these are just some of my passions. I'll talk later about the Overcomers Ministry, one of the programs that really helped me out. And from there, we'll go from there.
And I just want to say that Alvin is my colleague, and we have the opportunity and the privilege and the honor of serving together at Mending Hearts Family Counseling Center in Florence, New Jersey. Yes, shout out to Mending Hearts and our fearless leader, Dr. Danita Thompson. I'm telling you, it's a great place to serve. And it's a great place for those who are in need of some counseling to get whatever it is that you need. So I just want to encourage those. And as you see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, it's a national helpline, and then you can share that with someone you know who may be struggling with drug use, drug addiction. They can call the national helpline to get some assistance, and they can get pointed in the right direction to help to get them started on the road to recovery. So my first question is for you, Alvin. You know, people, you have various terms when it comes to drugs. So if you would explain the difference, if any, between substance use, substance abuse, and addiction.
Excuse me.
Well, first of all, we have to understand that substance abuse and substance addictions are synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Those two are anybody can use, but the addictive part of it, that's when people cannot put it down. It changes them, and they have no more control over what they're using. And it can go from anything, not just drugs. It can be anything.
Right.
Sex addiction, porn addiction, whatever. Yes.
Because I know the in the DSM-5, there's a lot of different substances that are used. Because some people just use the broad term drug abuse or drug use, but in the DSM-5 they say substance because there's so many different substances. Now, of course, I think out in the general community, there's certain substances that we think of more prevalent in terms of when it comes to drug use or drug addiction, but there are a lot of substances that are listed there. So just, if you will, review what some of those substances are.
Well, I mean, you have the marijuana, you have the cigarettes, you have the biggest thing right now is vaping. Where we find more teenagers find it accessible, and they can get away with it because you can't smell it. Crack cocaine, heroin, pills. Sometimes people that use for ADHD abuse it so they can get the high or the rush. As one kid told me, he's like, when he finds himself anxious, he'll take something to bring him down. When he's down, he'll take something else to bring him back up.
Yeah.
There's many various, even alcohol. So there's just various forms that we see in the streets, and the party drug. You go to a club, and the kids are using different things, sex drugs, and people they abuse it.
Yeah. I hear you. So I want to ask Gary, if you will, what has been your personal experience with substance use?
Well, I'm glad you broke it down there regarding the use and abuse and addiction, because when I first looked at your questions, I realized I had surpassed the use of these substances, and it became an addiction. In fact, in the beginning, the use was fine. It was enjoyable. In fact, it was something I did with my peers, and we enjoyed it until that substance began to use me. And it was no more fun after that. It became an addiction. It became a habit that I had to support, that I had to have. And I went to many lengths to support that habit. I've been to jail behind it. I've been homeless behind it. This substance had taken me places where my mother didn't raise me to be. And I asked myself, how did I get here? I find myself in this box on 42nd Street. What I couldn't imagine, I couldn't fathom for the life of me. I used to see guys in these boxes, 42nd Street and these different places, the Bowery, because I could drive by with my parents as a child. And then I found myself right there in that box. And then didn't know how I got there. Couldn't imagine for the life of me how I got there. But I was there. And so substances, drugs had taken me to all the way down to that, to homelessness, uh, to jails, institutions. That's where it's taken me. I can tell you about me coming out of it in a minute, but that's where it had taken me. That's where it's taken me. But thank God I'm not using any drugs today. In fact, as of today, I haven't used drugs or picked up alcohol for the last 13 years and 4 months. 13 years and 4 months. 13 years and 4 months.
Praise God.
I haven't touched neither one of them. Not only have I not touched drugs, alcohol, I'm working on developing a better lifestyle so that I don't have a reason to want to get out of myself again, to look for some kind of a way out. So, and one way I'm doing that is by staying connected to this God of mine, this power that I call greater than myself.
Yes,
because I needed that, and I finally found it. I mean, I've had this power in my life for a long time. I was raised with God in my life, in fact, but somehow I got disconnected. Today, I'm finding a better connection with my God, and because of that, I truly believe because of that, I haven't picked up a drug or alcohol. I mean, alcohol is a drug. I need to say that.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a drug. I haven't picked neither one of those up in 13 years and some months.
And are you okay with indicating which drug? What was your drug of choice other than alcohol?
My drug of choice was cocaine, crack, cocaine specifically. I mean, it was a variety of things, but I think that was my ending one. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate your willingness to be open and to be very, very transparent.
I have a question for either one of you gentlemen. What do you believe are some of the underlying factors that contributed to your substance use?
Gary, what can I go first?
You must go right ahead, please.
You said I must. For myself, I guess I felt, Gary, you used the word felt like you was out of place. And there were times where I just felt that was one of the ways that I felt that out of place. And, at I think about 11, 12 years old, introduced to marijuana, smoking. And, from there, it was just, it kind of grew. Thinking that I knew my family loved me. I had a great family. And I guess for me, there were times where I felt like they didn't care. I used that as a proponent to drive me in a word. From marijuana to, drinking, that's where it started, but that's not where it ended. It was I guess it was like a roller coaster going down, leading to nowhere. And so for me, I kind of felt like different things, but I didn't know how to express myself, didn't know how to communicate, didn't know how to really talk to my family, let them know what I was feeling. So, and then peer pressure, just trying to follow behind the wrong people. And, living in North Philly, it was like gangs and stuff like that. And you're just trying to be cool, trying to be out there. So that's, for me, that was my underlying what started.
So Gary, what for you do you think might have been some underlying factors that contributed to your use of substance?
Well, as I look back, and thanks for going first, Alvin. You get me online with where I need to go with this question. And yeah, I think when I look back at my life, as I look back at my life, uh, uh, the most underlining factor was my search for peace.
Mm.
As I look back at peace,
Wow.
looking for, I might connect that peace with God, connection with God. Um, as I said earlier, I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel like I belonged. I've learned as I went through recovery, different recovery process, that that I have an allergy to drugs and
Mm.
substances. And once I start, I develop a phenomenal craving to have more and more, which
Mm-hmm.
sets me apart from the normal people, or from most people, might I say. When
Mm-hmm.
I take a drink or a drug, I want more and more and more,
Mm-hmm.
and some more. In fact, I'll kill myself if you allow me to. And I almost did just that. Once I take a drink or a drug, I just can't seem to stop. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, and because I've learned that and I know that today, that's the one reason why I know I cannot pick up a drink or drug. I can't even
Yeah.
pick up a wrong attitude. In fact, if I don't correct my way of living and how I think, I might lead myself back to doing some things that picking up another substance.
Mm.
I might kill myself eating fried chicken if I don't watch myself. I got to be mindful of the food, even the food I eat. I have to be mindful of that because I'll overeat and kill myself eating. I almost did that. In fact, I'm gonna give you a quick joke. When I was a child, I was out in Coney Island, me and my family, and I was everybody was having fun, and I was in a picnic basket eating the food. My stomach got so big they thought that it was going to burst. I had some aunts from North Carolina, so they thought my stomach was going to burst. They really had a concern
Mm.
about me, how much food I had eaten. So they took me to Coney Island Hospital. But everything came out fine. But yeah, but I sat at that basket and I had this, and I ate all this food, so much
Mm.
food.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be mindful of things that I do, how I
Yeah.
do them.
Yeah.
Amen.
So it sounds like you have a tendency when there is something that is enjoyable or in some way brings you pleasure. Once you start, there's almost no end.
Right,
You just keep
exactly.
going and going and going. It doesn't matter if it's food. It doesn't matter if it's drugs. It doesn't matter if it's whatever it might be. And as you end,
All right.
then you, and that's great that you're being able to say that indicates a high level of self-awareness, and that really will go very far in helping you to stay on your path of recovery. But I'm wondering, for either one of you, is there any family history of any substance abuse or substance?
Um, they drank, and that was their way.
Mm-hmm.
Party, drinking, um, night after night. On the weekends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I broke the mold. I,
Hmm.
I believe I broke the mold though.
Okay.
As far as venturing out, and and that just goes back to me just being adventurous and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just trying to find my place
Yeah.
where I belong. Yeah, even
Yeah.
going to church, and I say this, Triumph might be listening, but but they know me as a little kid, and it was like sitting in the back of church. Me and my friend, we would go down to the store, get our NyQuil, just so we could have our little buzz and sit back in church.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not proud of it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how bad it was as a young
Yeah.
kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Gary, is there any history of substance abuse in your family?
Yes, there is. I think I know my father drank a lot. I don't want to call him. I cannot call him an alcoholic. I know he. It appeared that he abused alcohol to me.
Mm-hmm.
He drank a lot of it. In fact, we were ran out of the South. That's how I got here. How I got to New York. We were chased out of North Carolina because he was a bootlegger. And they suggested he leave town and don't come back. That's one of the ways I got to New York here in my mother's arms. My mother drank for a few years, but she stopped. She realized it wasn't something she wanted to do. Most of my brothers drank and drugged. One of my brothers died. My oldest brother died from this disease, in fact, of addiction. He did drugs most of his life. For some reason, my sisters never had an issue with drugs or alcohol or substances. I don't know where that fits into all this, but the ladies in the family, it was fine when it came to this. But most of my brothers, I might say, used and abused drugs.
Yeah.
So we're talking about family. Then let me ask this question: how were your relationships impacted by substance use? Family, friendships, romantic relationships. How were they impacted?
Well, for me, if I may go,
Sure.
Yeah, drugs. First off, demanded my full attention. Once I got over the use of it, and it became an addiction, and it became abusive, it demanded my full attention, which took all my attention away from my relationships. It made me very self-centered. In fact, the drug. All I thought of was my substance and how to get it. So because of that, my relationships declined. I could not. In fact, I had an issue with developing any kind of relationship, be it man or woman. I had an issue with being able to stay focused in a relationship and give my all. Even with you as my friend, Frank, for how many years we've been friends? About 40 years now.
Gary, about 50 years.
As you speaking, I was about to say, that drug issue impacted our friendship so much that I always wondered where you were, missed you, was just really concerned. So I know what you're talking about. I felt that.
Yeah, and I remember taking you out of your house a couple of times in my journey, trying to get you to help me with my substance, support it. And you were so naive, and you had so much love for me that you tried to help me out. You didn't realize that you were not helping me at all.
Yeah.
True that.
And many times I would say, why don't he just take his behind upstairs and just give me some money and let me go my way. I still had love for you, brother. I didn't lose all that I had.
I know.
I just wanted the money, and I wanted you to just go back upstairs and leave me alone. But somehow you wanted to be a part of my life, and I didn't want you to be. You didn't understand the way I was headed in the life that I was leading. I knew that, but you meant well, and I thank you. I thank you for that, for your friendship, brother.
Yeah, I think I was the one that had a little bit more tough love than Frank.
Well, I'm sure you did.
Yeah. I did have a little bit more tough love than Frank did, and I think that's because you and he had a longer standing relationship than you and I had. Because even though, at that time, because even though you were my friend as well as his friend, you were like my brother. I think it was easier for me to separate the love I had for you from the addiction that I could see, and I could see the spiraling. And I think it was easier for me to see it than for Frank. And I would try to talk to him about it, and he would be in denial. He would be in complete denial of it because he didn't want to see it. But eventually it did get to a point where he could see it. And then we both had to engage in some tough love. And that was hard. That was hard for both of us to cut you off the way that we did. But I feel as if that was the best thing that we could do for you at that time, because it did definitely impact our relationship.
Well, I'm grateful for your friendship, first off, and what you've done for me, and the part you played in my life. It amazed me why. Well, I recognized that I could not. I was so disconnected from God at the time that I couldn't even see the love being offered. I couldn't understand Frank. I thought he was just so naive. How could someone be so naive? The man was just being loving. Even when I got to recovery, I found men approaching me and wanting to help me, and I'm trying to figure out what does this man want from me. I didn't realize I was in God's hands, and He was just sending me help.
Right,
I'm so
right.
grateful. I'm so grateful today to know that there is a God, and that God is alive.
Yes, absolutely.
Amen.
So, Alvin, how were your relationships impacted? And I'm particularly interested in how romantic relationships were impacted in the midst of substance use.
I was a secret agent.
Mm,
I hid it for many years in my first marriage.
mm-hmm,
I didn't indicate it in my bio, but as we spoke earlier, I have 2 resumes. Um, I lost the whole family.
mm,
Um, you know, the person I was with, my first wife, we was dating ever since she was like 14, and she's seen the gradual change in myself.
mm-hmm,
But I was functional.
mm,
That's why I say I was a secret agent. I was
mm-hmm.
very functional, working. I would go to work, um, but it was just gravitating. I was just gravitating to it. As it gotten worse, as Gary indicated, cocaine became my best friend. In the military, you know, I used to jump out of helicopters, high, and
Mm-hmm.
but what it did, um, I couldn't communicate to my wife, my ex-wife. She wanted to talk, I couldn't talk. I would hide money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it became, it was, it was bad off. It was abusive, somewhat. Um, to the point where, she left me with 3 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I had just gotten saved, and I, God told me He was going to take my life, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, at that moment, I asked Him to take it away from me. But in the process, I lost a whole family. So,
Mm-hmm.
when the impact on families and what it does, the division with your children, even with your children, because I had to explain to them, that I apologize to them, and and let them know, like, a lot of it was my fault.
Yeah.
Some of hers, but a lot of it was my fault, things I was doing. So it took a time for me to rebuild my relationship with my children, and even me and my ex-wife, we became friends up
Good.
until her
Yeah.
end. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's real.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Because just like I said at the beginning, um, families are impacted, and
Yes.
there's hardly any that have not been. I've heard it said that a person will seek recovery and help with their substance abuse when they have hit rock bottom. And I know rock bottom could be different for different individuals.
Right.
So, what was your rock bottom? What did you identify as your rock bottom if you reach that point?
Well, I did. For me, my rock bottom was I lost a job, lost my family, as I stated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had nowhere else to go, and
Mm.
and and I do believe with all my heart that was God's way of pulling on me, showing me, like, hey, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to hit that so I can look up, because I realized I couldn't do it anymore by myself.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, you know, it was a hard road, but it was something that I wanted, something
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
appreciated, and it helped me to see me for who I really was.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Gary, what was rock bottom for you, brother?
Well, my back bottom, I thought it would be after I lost my jobs. I had some great jobs that I lost. And I thought after going to prison and having my freedom taken away from me, I thought that would be my bottom, but it was not. I kept continuing to use after going through all those things until I got into my room with my shades down uh, one particular evening, and
You even answered it.
the drugs stopped working. They weren't working. They weren't working anymore. I was
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was I was telling my dealer that his stuff was no good, and he was looking at me like I was crazy. I guess I was somewhat crazed. Um, but my bottom was I was feeling like an empty shell. Basically, my spirit had simply left my body. That's what it seemed. I had no other choice, as Alvin said, but to look up and ask God for help. That was my bottom when I was in my room this particular day, and I just I put the substance down because it wasn't working anyway, and I just looked up and said, "God, help me."
Yes.
Thank God he did.
And he did. Praise God. As he does, you know, his word says, when the righteous cry out, he hears. And he not only hears, but he answers. Doesn't always answer in a way that we anticipate, but he always answers.
That's right.
Absolutely. So, you know, I'm interested in the what's known as the 12-step programs. What are they? How do they work? And what are the 12 steps? And either one of you can address that.
Okay.
The 12 steps.
Go ahead, Gary.
For me, the 12-step program is a self-help program. First off, it helped get me away from myself and get closer to God. And how it works is a passage that I was reading for many years before I realized that how it works is actually how it works in the program that I was in. And if you give me 2 minutes, I can read to you. I'd need to read to you. I'd like to read how it works.
Yeah, go ahead.
The 12 steps of this particular program, the self-help program that I was in, and it states, it goes like this. It says how it works. This is how the program works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. It's such unfortunate. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands vigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but they do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you have decided that you want what we have and you're willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. And at some of these we walked, we thought that we could find an easier and softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Remember that we deal with alcohol or drugs or whatever it is in your life that's holding you back, and it's cunning, baffling, and it's powerful. Without help, it is too much for us, or at least it was too much for me. But there is one who has all power, and that one is God. May you find God now. It says that half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point and we asked for God's protection and care with complete abandon. And here are the steps. These are the steps that we took, which are suggested. They're suggested as a program of recovery. Number one, we admitted that we were powerless over drugs and alcohol, and that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Thank God for that step there, because as of today, I continue to look at myself and see when I'm wrong, and whenever I'm wrong, I admit when I'm wrong, and I become a better man for that today. And I don't have to get outside myself to feel better about some things I might have done, because as long as I stay honest in this recovery process of mine, I'll be okay. As long as I stay close to God and stay connected with God. Step 5 is that I admitted that I admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrong. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all my defects of character. 7, humbly ask God to remove all my shortcomings. 8, I made a list of all persons that I harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, step 9, I made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, I continue to take personal inventory, and where I'm wrong, I promptly admit it. 11, I'm almost through here. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand God, praying only for the knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I try to carry this message to alcoholics and drug addicts and to practice these principles in all my affairs.
Wow. Those are powerful.
Yeah.
Those are powerful. Go ahead, Alvin. You want to say something?
I was just getting ready when I was talking about overcoming this ministry, because that was through I'm gonna give a shout out to Triumph Baptist Church again, because it saved my life. It was overcoming ministry. They did the NAAA program, but they did it in a spiritual way. The way Gary is explaining it, you know, when you understand that you come to an understanding, like what me and Gary just got finished. We couldn't do this by ourselves,
right?
And you had to look up. Then you understand, because now you're giving yourself will over to somebody that's stronger than you, understands what you're going through, and can direct your paths as to where you need to go. And he will guide you to the right people that's going to be able to be an influence in your life. You know, and with those, every step that he gave, you know, and you using the scriptures, having faith, which is the substance of things not seen.
Yes.
And you understand that, because now you have to believe that you can do this and that you're empowered to be a better person. So everybody has their own walk as to how and which program they might, but the basis is just like what Gary's saying. It's like being self-reflecting, being able to accept it, and to be interpersonal and have that healing within, allow it to take place. And then, you know, and just the continued abstinence, because once God gives you the strength to stop, now you got to take the other step and walk it.
Yes. Yes.
Walk it like you talk.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, with those steps, were there any that you found more challenging than others?
Going back and asking for forgiveness. And asking, because in your walk, you're going to hurt a lot of people. You know, me going back to my children, me apologizing to my ex, me going back to my parents, well, my mom at the time, and having a dialogue with her about everything. That was the hardest thing for me to do. The hardest. But once I let it go, I had to let it go and understand that I'm already forgiven.
Yeah. Gary, was there any particular step that was the hardest for you? You found most challenging?
Once I decided to, once I surrendered to this process, there was all the steps of welcoming actually in my life. I was looking forward to all of them. The one that I did find most challenging, and which is still challenging to me, is turning my will, my life over to the care of God, which is step 3. I find I have to do this. I have to do it on a daily basis, because I wake up in the morning, I pray to God that God's will be done, and I walk out the door and I curse the guy out that's driving in front of me because he's driving too slow. And I realize right away how quickly I can take my will back. And I do this on a daily basis, but I'm finding that what I have to do is I have to constantly, consistently call on this God of mine. I believe that's exactly what he wants me to do. He wants me to depend on him because, as Alvin said, I can't do this by myself. And this God of mine that I chose to accept as my higher power wants me to continually look for him for help, because without him, I'm nothing.
Yes, yes.
Can I ask Gary a question though?
Okay.
Self-evaluation. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
I think it's necessary for me to look at myself daily, especially. I have to concede who I am first off. I have to own who I am for me to. That's the first step, basically, is recognizing and accepting, admitting that I'm powerless.
Right.
I have to be honest, truly honest with myself and those around me about myself for my recovery to work. I have to own who I am and what I do. I'm not a perfect soul. I probably never will be. But as long as I recognize who I am and what I do, and when I step on someone's toe, that I should apologize and recognize when I'm doing wrong. I constantly take a inventory of myself, and as I do that throughout the day, I have to do this throughout the day, and recognize where I am. I become more humble for those around me. I can become more selfless, and give more and think more of others, because all my life and most of the time I'm thinking about Gary. And I know that what's my recovery is all about is for me to get out of myself. And that's why I'm sitting here before you guys today in this platform and giving you the story of my recovery life and my drug life, because I believe that I might be able to help someone if they see where I've come from and where I'm at. And today, I must say it again, I haven't picked up a drink nor a drug in 13 years and 4 months. Then then I can give some hope to someone else.
Yes, praise God, praise God.
I apologize. Apologize for that. I just wanted to ask that question.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're all here to share and learn and ask questions of each other. And I want to invite those who are watching. If you have a question that you want to ask either one of our guests, just put it in the chat. Whatever the question is, whether it's a question, whether it's an encouragement, an acknowledgement, whatever it may be. But I have known some individuals who had addictions, and after having gone through the 12-step programs, felt as if they could be social drinkers, even though they had a history of addiction. They didn't totally abstain from that. So what are your thoughts on that, about someone who had a prior addiction, let's say with alcohol, now being able to be a social drinker, or someone who had an addiction to crack now being able to be a recreational crack user? So what are your thoughts on that?
That's a good one. Gary, you want to go first?
I guess I can jump in here and say that I was on that path where I thought that maybe my problem was not. First of all, I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. I never thought I had a problem with alcohol, because alcohol didn't take me to jail or institutions. I could afford alcohol. It was a crack I could not afford. That took a lot of money, and I had to do some shoplifting to help me with that habit, and that's why I went to jail. But what I recognized is that I had to come to terms with the fact that I cannot do any drugs. I can't do alcohol, even though it wasn't my drug of choice. I can't. I'm at a place in my recovery where I can't pick up the wrong attitude. It has nothing to do with the drug and alcohol anymore. In fact, my problem has nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. It's a spiritual problem that I come to terms with. And I guess one would have to get to that place where they have to go to any lengths necessary to get their lives back together. I found that drugs and alcohol is not my problem at all. My problem is way beyond that. And it has to do, it's a spiritual problem. It has a lot to do with God. once I allowed God back into my life and start to give my will and my life over to this God, then things began to change. But I found that after a few years of being in recovery, that my problem, even today, I know I don't have a problem with picking up a drink or a drug. I don't think about drugs, alcohol anymore.
Mm.
I think about having the wrong attitude when I walk out on the street and cursing that old lady out who's driving in front of me. Have enough humility to recognize and be humble enough to those around me and stop thinking so much about myself and where I got to go and think about that maybe they got somewhere to go also. And stop thinking that everybody's in my way.
Right.
That's what I'm working on today. That's what's making me a better man. As Alvin, you asked me earlier how I got to stop thinking so much of myself and think of others. And as I do that, my life gets better. I have no need to want to go out and get high or get out of myself because I'm happy with who I am today. I'm becoming a better man.
So, Alvin, what are your thoughts on that?
It's like, for me, what I tell clients, it's like playing Russian roulette. You got one bullet in the chamber. As you spin it or as you use, once you pull that trigger, you don't know if that's going to be your end because it could be worse than before. The Bible says like this, he's like, God cleans you.
Yeah.
And it goes away. But it's roaming and is looking for a place. And when it finds that it's nice and clean, it's gonna come back even worse. So as you attempt to do these things and you pick up that drink or you pick up that drug again, you have to be mindful that it could be your last.
Yes.
It could be your last. Whereas you might have been in control before, but now you're not in control at all. And you, as Gary said, when you hit that rock bottom, you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And there's no way up.
One of our viewers, Gloria, is asking the question: what's the greatest pleasure that that your recovery has given to you?
Peace of mind. Peace of mind. Understanding who I am as a Black king. Understanding who I am in God. I use for my program, Dare to Be a Dreamer. Because I am a licensed minister. That was one of the sermons when I was younger that I preached, and I didn't even understand why I was preaching that. But as time went, the Joseph story kept arising. God gives each and every one of us a dream.
Yes.
And a purpose. And is yet for us to discover until we walk in that walk. And you're going to have pitfalls. You're going to have hope. So when I do this, me doing counseling, because as everybody know, I do counseling because I love it. I don't do it because of I love the money, but it's not for me. And I'm just saying, for me, it's not about that.
Not about the money.
I found my purpose, and this is my pleasure. This is my pleasure. When I can help somebody, when I can save somebody, it's not me saving it, because Christ is doing all the counseling, because he is a great counselor. But when I see that does my heart good. I have this one pastor friend. I'm not gonna say his name. I mean, he wouldn't mind because he always shit. I never forget when I stopped doing drugs, and he came to my door, and he was like, "Yo, let's go out." Me and him was in the reserves together. And when I told him, I gave him my testimony that I stopped doing it, and he walked away wondering. He said, "What kind of guy can do that for you?" And he said it put him in search. He stopped drinking. He stopped drinking and doing the drugs, and now he's a pastor.
Wow.
So it's that type of pleasure. and seeing my family happy, seeing my kids happy, and you know, that's it for me. It's about your family life now. Love it.
And what about you, Gary? What's been the greatest pleasure for you with your recovery?
I would think that the greatest thing for me is the freedom, knowing that I have freedom not to use drugs or alcohol to sustain my life. But when I was drinking and drugging, I felt imprisoned. I felt that I had to do it. And it wasn't a great feeling. I remember the times when I would take one drink, and after that first drink, I had this strong feeling to have another one and another one and another one. And that I felt imprisoned by that. Even with the crack and the cocaine and all the other drugs I used, I had to keep going. And I felt imprisoned by that. When I came away from that and able to practice these 12 steps in my life and get closer to God, I found the freedom to know that I don't ever have to do that again. And that's the most peaceful thing I guess that's what I was looking for, that peace of mind.
Yeah.
To know that I don't have to be captured by anything but God. In fact, I don't have to be slave to alcohol or drugs or anything else. If I ask for help and look for it, I can get it, and I'll be all right. So freedom.
I hear that. Nothing like it. So for a single person, when they're going through recovery in the 12-step program, what are the recommendations in terms of relationship when they're going through recovery in that 12-step program? Is there anything that they recommend or suggest that you do or avoid in terms of romantic relationships while you're in recovery for those who are single?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
For a single person who is starting a 12-step program,
right?
Are there any recommendations in terms of romantic relationships, in terms of whether avoiding them or things that they should be on the lookout for while they're in recovery in a 12-step program?
Well, for me, go ahead, Gary. Go ahead. I don't want to take. Go ahead.
No, I know. For me, it was suggested that you don't do no major changes in your life the first year, be it with romance or relationships or anything for that matter. I remember I have a sponsor, in fact, a gentleman that I looked up to in the program that I'm in, and I told him, listen, I'm ready to get my life together. I said, in fact, I want to stop smoking these cigarettes. He suggested, no, you don't stop smoking those cigarettes right now, young man. And I thought he was crazy. I said, well, why would you tell me not to stop smoking cigarettes? Isn't that a good thing? It's a good thing to stop. Yes. And I finally did. Thank God. I have about 12 years, in fact, without a cigarette. And that's a good thing for me also. But he told me not to stop cigarettes because it's a major change. They suggest not to make any major changes in your life because it can trigger you back to that drink or that drug. And being that fact that I accepted the fact that I was powerless over these drinks and drugs, I took his suggestion and I didn't stop smoking. It took me another 6 months, and then I began to wean myself away from it. As far as relationship, they suggest don't get too emotionally involved or get into a relationship because you take the focus off yourself when you're with someone else. In the beginning of your recovery, they suggest you to focus on yourself. You don't have time there for a relationship, in fact. And I did. I stayed away from a relationship. Not only did I stay away from a romantic relationship, I was celibate for a whole year or two. That's something I didn't think I could ever do. I just thought for the life of me that I just had to be with a woman at some point. But to be without one for 2 or 3 years was an eye opener for me, actually. But I was able to do this. It was okay. I didn't have to be with a woman. As I thought all my life that I had to do this. A lot of things that I thought that I grew up on, I realized I had to change because a lot of that stuff was not true.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Okay. Alvin, did you want to address that?
Yes. When you're working on yourself Better yet, let me use me. Um, when I was separated, I waited a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like God put me on timeout, and I did good. I was celibate. I wasn't chasing nobody. I had the 3 kids at the house. My main focus was to learn me, understand who I was. You cannot do that in a relationship because things could trigger you. You're not mentally ready. In that year, by me understanding who I was, understanding who I was in God, helped develop me to be a better me.
Yeah.
And that way I could be a better me to somebody else. Because you cannot love yourself. You can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
And we're in addiction. We didn't love ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we was hurting ourselves. So it's hard to work on a relationship and work on your recovery. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is being true to yourself is best if you work on get yourself right. So you can, you'll be stable enough and strong enough to deal with any obstacles that may come your way.
Yeah.
One question I have, gentlemen. What are some of the signs someone should look for if they suspect their partner of substance use / abuse? What are some of the signs we look for?
Being sneaky. Hide money. Notice coming in late, always having an excuse, arguing, abusive, always ready to fight, being defensive, can't be trusted. Gary, you can jump in there. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, and I feel you. I want to add to that. I think a disconnection to from spirituality and from God is what I would be mindful of, because I do find I have found that when we're not connected, when I'm not connected with God, that things are unbalanced. There's an imbalance there, and something's wrong. So the money things up front, unmanageability with money for me, the hiding of how much, how often one might use, like your partner might not tell you that they're drinking in the morning or they're drinking in the evening. They might start drinking early before 12 o'clock or before evening, what you think is a normal time to drink, and they might be drinking before those hours. Or you might be mindful of that. The hiding of their uses of drugs and alcohol. Because some people can do drugs and alcohol and they don't have a problem with it. They don't have addiction like I might have. I have brothers and sisters who drink. I have friends who drink and do recreational drugs, but it don't give them a problem. They don't have the problem that I have. I have an addictive personality, and therefore I can't use. There's some people that can drink all they want, do all the drugs they want, all well for them. That's good for them. For me, I have to recognize who I am. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I cannot do what they do.
Right.
So I had to come to terms with who I am first off, and know who I am and own it.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask about something, and this is something I feel very strongly about. Okay, so just for full transparency, I feel very strongly about this. So what I categorize as the so-called opioid addiction, and the thing that troubles me about it the most is the difference in the ways in which the crack addicts were treated, because they were criminalized, and a lot of them were placed in prison. They didn't have an opportunity for treatment the way the soccer moms now who are addicted to opioids. There appears to be this difference in the way that they're treated now. They have the opportunity to get treated for their substance use problem, whereas the heroin addicts of old, and the crack addicts were put in prison.
Mhm.
And I feel very strongly about that. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts?
Racism has always played a big part, especially in the urban city.
Yeah.
one gram of crack, 5 years, versus you can have cocaine, you get a slap on the wrist. You know, heroin. You know, it's me coming from the prison system, working at corrections, and you know, you're seeing all these people, being locked up for substance abuse, and others getting, recreational. So there was a big difference.
Yeah.
That's always been so hard because it almost ruined my career in the military. Right? Drug use in the military was bad at one point. I went in the late 70s, so 78, 79, and it was just flown in. So when we see like in Philadelphia, the addicts that's on Kensington Avenue and people in houses, and they were not getting the help that they needed, because a lot of them somebody needed to treat the symptoms and the problems.
Right.
But it wasn't available until, as you say, soccer moms start abusing, and the kids, the epidemic with the kids, it affected outside the urban community.
Yes.
Then it became a problem. It should have always been a problem. It should have always been a problem. And I can go deeper, but I'm gonna leave it right there.
Yeah, but even the terminology. In the past, it was a war on drugs, but now it's an opioid crisis. So even the terminology and the ways in which the drug use is identified is indicative of a problem.
Right.
Gary, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I'm gonna leave it right there where Alvin left it. I'm gonna leave that there, that racism thing. We know where that stands, but I think also society has come to terms with. I think society's come to terms with the use of drugs of any kind, including alcohol. They finally come to terms with the fact that alcohol is a drug. First off, there was a time where they would put us alcoholics with being put in asylums and put into straitjackets because they didn't know how to treat them or what to do for this alcoholic individual. I think they begin to realize that these people have a physical, mental, and spiritual condition, and that it needs attention. So the opioid thing, along with the alcohol, as well as the crack and the cocaine and the heroin, I think society, thank God, has finally come to terms with the fact that this is not just a street thing. It's a worldwide thing that needs to be addressed.
Yes, yeah, and not treat addicts like criminals, but treat them like people who need help.
Exactly.
Getting over their addiction.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely key. So yeah, I agree with what you just said, Gary.
Gentlemen, final words of advice and or encouragement.
I'll start it off if you don't mind, Brother Alvin.
No, go ahead.
It was a pleasure meeting you, brother. I appreciate the service that you're doing and the work that you're doing.
Appreciate you.
Please keep it up. You're very much needed out there. This platform, Valerie, is very much needed as well. So glad that you took the time, you and Frank, to bring this platform to life.
Yes.
once again, I want to thank God for the opportunity for this second chance at life. But my ending comments would be that if you're overwhelmed in any way or overpowered or feel overpowered with anything, be it drugs, food, sex, whatever it might be, know that you have a way out. That you don't
Yes.
ever you don't ever have to pick up a drink or a drug again if you choose not to. At first, I believe that you have to admit that you and concede to the fact that you're powerless. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was powerless. It was hard for me to say that or come to that term that I'm powerless over something, but I realized that I was at the moment that I needed some help. And the only way I got the help was when I recognized my powerlessness and asked for the help.
Yeah.
And go to God in prayer. Prayers are being answered.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Amen.
Thank
Amen.
you.
Waiting on me.
Yep. whatever you want to share, brother.
I'll say it like this. In the beginning, I told Valerie that I had 2 resumes. You heard a lot of the positive, and this is how I'm gonna end it. The resume goes like this. In the beginning, I was married for 13 years to the first wife, 3 children, good job, military, just doing different things, everything, and I was doing good in school. Second, lost everything, lost the first wife. So I was a dropout in high school. But with everything that you lose, just like Job, God is a rewarder. I have 2 masters, and I'm not saying this, for accolades or anything, but with God, all things are possible.
Yes.
But we have to put our trust in God. And as Gary stated, over again, you have to understand you cannot do this by yourself. You have to find the strength to reach out to somebody that can walk with you and talk with you. Somebody that's been in the fight.
Yes.
And is doing the fight. And because you're not in it by yourself. You're not in it by yourself. And you have to believe that something greater in you can come out of you. But you have to follow that dream. Dreams has been taken away from you. But the only person that can stop your dream is you.
Absolutely.
Ain't no devil in hell can stop what God put in you.
Amen.
And as a testament, you see me and Gary, we're sitting, living, breathing, and we're telling you our stories. And we're not ashamed of our stories. It should have been our end. But here we are.
Your beginning. It's just the beginning. Praise God. Thank you guys. I just want to thank you again so very much for your yes, for your openness, for your transparency. It means a lot. And I believe that, because I'm a believer, and I strongly believe that God doesn't waste anything. Amen. I believe that there's some individual, and prayerfully several individuals who will be helped by everything that you shared on today. So those who are watching, I thank you. And again, share, like, subscribe, and definitely share this with someone that you think can benefit from hearing the stories and the testimonies of these 2 brave and wonderful men who have taken out the time to share their life stories with us on today. So again, I thank you. The Cookie Man and I will not be here next week. We're going to
where are you going?
A vow renewal. Val and George are renewing their vows next week.
I don't remember you telling me I was going there.
That's another segment.
You just slipped that in. She slipped that in.
Segment.
I don't know about that one.
He forgot, but I did tell him.
I'm working next weekend.
Not Sunday.
Oh Lord.
It's on Sunday. You're not working Sunday?
That's the beginning of football season.
But Frank, wait a minute. We'll have to have this finish this conversation off camera because I told him about this weeks ago. He doesn't remember. But anywho, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, viewers. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. And then we'll see you next time.
All right. Be good.
Y'all take care.